in my talk, I will explore a topic part of my current research on Hellenistic figurines from the cult place of Harayeb and on the objects of the encounter between the Greek and the Phoenician worlds along the Mediterranean coasts, which is part of the print project headed and coordinated by Lorenzo Nigro. When immaterial and intangible sources are lacking, the archaeological objects and the images are useful tools to investigate habits of common people. So, terracotta figurines representing females and children could be used for an anthropological approach, as suggested by Arthur Müller, and to reconstruct the social roles and the cultural lives of these two categories, keeping in mind that figurines are not passive objects, but, quoting Agnès Garcia Ventura and Mireia Lopez Bertran, they represent material cultural emotion, provoking movements, and embodying practices among the people who observe, touch, or interact with them. In aiming to diachronically highlight the elements of continuity and innovation in the adoption and choice of different iconographies, we will analyze items dated between the pre-Hellenistic and the Hellenistic period. Moreover, a more comprehensive perspective will be offered by the comparison with other sources and works of art. Finally, we will try to address some conclusions on continuity and changes in habits and society. Before entering in medias res, as done also by Barbara, it is necessary to state some points related to available data and research methodology. First, the retrieval contexts are not always reliable because of the historical time and the conditions of excavations. In addition, the terracottas were often discovered in a secondary position or in layers in which the original location is not always specified further. Therefore, the precision of the dating is mostly based on technology, iconography, and style, depending on the possibility of comparisons with similar figurines from stratigraphic context. Then, the Hellenistic figurines sometimes have not been well published or properly illustrated, since archaeological research often focused on earlier chronologies. Despite all, we will try to diachronically analyze the evidence to stress cultural tendencies in Phoenician communities, examining iconographies unequivocally referring to activities, desires, and anxieties of women and children. First of all, we will analyze the female figurines dated back from the late Iron Age to Persian period, highlighting the typologies and their diffusion. Many female figurines in late Iron Age have well-made bodies, single-molded faces, and unmade assemblage of some parts of the body or some other details. Discovered in necropolises, cult places, and domestic contexts, they are mostly concentrated in the area between Beirut and Tel Dor. These figurines are referred to rituals and performance involving women, as in the case of worshippers with offerings like birds or musicians with instruments. But they are also related to fertility and maybe nursing, as in the case of figurines holding a pronounced breast and having a prominent belly. In the Persian period, anthropomorphic figurines are mostly hollow, front-molded in a monoval mold with their back smoothed and sometimes double-molded. In the same period, there was a significant continuity in the predominance of female terracottas, but many males and a few children typologies are also documented. The most common female type is the so-called pregnant woman, seated and occasionally standing, with the right hand on the swollen abdomen and the left placed on the knee. She's dressed in a long garment with a veil over her head. Generally discovered in cultic contexts and necropolises, this type is mainly known from coastal sites between Antardos and Tel Dor, occurring farther south in Ascalon or in hinterland sites such as Tel Zippor. This iconographic type expressed the desires related to maternity and maybe the anxieties for a happy full-term pregnancy. Some variants of the seated woman are also documented. One, probably from Amrit, bears a child in her arms. Others from Antaradus and Sidon hold a palm-shaped fan, a variant only known from Tripoli holds a cake, like an offering. A single example from Byblos appears to carry a spherical object, while some figurines from Harayeb have a disc or a fan in the breast. Variants of the standing pregnant woman, but naked, have been found in Beirut with outstretched arms and probably in Sidon, while entire this type has the right hand in the gesture of adoration and the left held to the breast. The gesture of squeezing their heavy breasts, also known in this period, is typical of the naked standing female figurines with a prominent belly, linked to fertility, maternity, and breastfeeding. They mainly appear in funerary and cultic contexts between Beirut and Aktib, and some occurred further south in Tel Dor and Makmish. In the Persian period, the relationship between mother and child is visible on the figurines documented between Sidon and Makmish, representing seated woman breastfeeding an infant or standing and carrying him, generally on the left arm. At Tel Sipur, Marsha, and Tel Alif, as Adi Arlik has well studied, an iconographical variation is documented, since an older child is seated on the left shoulder on his mother in a similar attitude of figurines from Greece and Sicily seen yesterday during our seminar. In the Persian period too, women are involved in music performances, like some examples found in Tripoli, Sidon, and Harayeb. Moreover, several figurines created by means of imported single mouths or obtained from Greek originals clearly show a Hellenic influence. They have been found in funerary and cultic contexts in a puntiform way from Amrit to Tel Sipur. They depict well-dressed young maidens, some of them standing with their arms alongside the body, probably representing themselves as elegant unmarried girls, while others with outstretched arms are like the ring dancers known from Greek and Cypriot contexts. Figurines without bases could be standing with others on a unique one that we don't have, while each terracotta having its own base was an abbreviation of the choral dance performed during pre-marriage rituals vitalized by the worshipper's agency. While terracotta figurines representing children seem to not be significant in late Iron Age, youngster and seated male infants, the so-called temple boys, are instead documented in Persian period. This iconography, probably created in Cyprus, is very rare in Phoenician terracotta figurines, counting 2 examples from Dor, one from Tel Sipur and another from Meravia, while is widespread in statues and statuettes made of limestone or imported marble, like those discovered in Tel Sipur and Bostan-e-Sheikh. Moreover, it is interesting to notice that in Bostan-e-Sheikh, statues of temple girls and maidens are especially attested in the Hellenistic period, similarly to the data suggested by the terracotta figurines. Moving to the Hellenistic figurines, a change in manufacturing technique is documented, since double mouths are now mostly used, and they were created generally in great centers of production located along the coast. We will analyze terracotta from Harayeb, an important case study for quantitative and qualitative data provided, since its typologies and fabrics are similar to those from other contexts, suggesting a production in a same workshop. In the Favissa and unopened paved courtyard, many Hellenistic figurines were discovered. Although typologies are well known in other centers around the Mediterranean, the rate of women is here really striking. They are represented at least by 23% of the Hellenistic fragments. Some figurines offer the social representation of well-dressed women with a fan, often completely wrapped in a mantle with heads covered with a dimation, that in the Greek context are distinctive of special occasions and typical of older and married women. In the cases where the heads are not covered, we can appreciate the chronological evolution in hair fashion from the Cnidia coiffure to the Lampadian hairstyle and the melon coiffure. Many Hellenistic figurines also depict female participants in rituals and religious performances like the previous periods. Some of them dance, completely veiled to emphasize the speed of the movements, or play instrument. Also others of tambourine, not only tambourine, like in the previous period. Maidens and women hold baskets, maybe containing offerings or food for the feast stay, jugs or hydriae. Hydrophoroi, mostly found in the Levant and Asia Minor, are linked with human fertility with references to the ritual bathing of brides and to religious practices associated with female and Kurotrophos cults. But this type could also reflect the use of water as a part of less defined cult performances, or more commonly, the day-to-day activities of the local women and their status as young girls or citizens' wives. Kurotrophoi and kurophoroi are widespread also in this period, breastfeeding, kissing, or carrying a child on the left arm. But to be honest, in the Carib context, we have also male children and men kurotrophoi. I would like to focus the attention on some figurines representing a mother holding a child and carrying writing tablets in a sort of bag. It could be read as an allusion to females, to real practice, of telling stories to children. We know from other terracottas from Caraïbes that females were educated in reading, or they could also refer to her job, showing a sort of ancient image of working mother. Regarding the children, in the Hellenistic age, there is a significant change in quantities and typologies. Boys and girls are represented at least by 35% of the Hellenistic fragments, and I propose to divide them into 3 age groups. The first group is represented by a great number of male and female babies playing with birds and boys playing with dogs. In the second group, there are young children doing activities linked to a transitional phase from childhood to adolescence, like the males saving a bunch of grapes from a bird, metaphorically alluding to the learning of rules. Other boys hold a bow in the right hand, referring to the bow's offerings in the sanctuary, also described in an epigram by Leonidas of Taras. In the last age group, there are male figurines playing and training Maltese dog with a bow, and youngsters represented as part of the local communities. Boys with tunic, enveloped in short mantles or voluminous himation, girls wearing a long chiton and a himation. Boys and girls imitate adults and take part in the socializing life of the sanctuary, involved in rituals and offerings. Some boys wear a stole, like the cult attendants, carry lanterns maybe during evening rituals, and offer animals and fruit, especially pomes, which could metaphorically allude to feelings, as Veronique Dezen has pointed out. Male and female experience activities related to music, theater, sport, and schooling, revealing the process of the education and incorporation into the world of adults by the word of play. It is important to notice that in the Hellenistic period, female babies play with birds and younger girls perform music, dance, and offerings. Regarding the school education, widespread for boys and girls in Hellenistic age, pupils from Caraïbes suggest a deeper gender differentiation. Female learn to read like the male age mates, but writing skills seem to be reserved to boys only. Well, let's try to draw some conclusion. From the technological point of view, there are significant innovation across the centuries, while from the iconographical point of view, some figurines participate in a long and rich continuum. I'm referring to women involved in rituals with music, dance, and offerings, holding a fan and represented like kurotrophoi and kurophoroi. In the pre-Hellenistic period, many aspects linked to fertility and motherhood were mostly depicted, from pregnancy and anxieties for breastfeeding to childbirth and nursing, while a big part of the women remained modest and indigent, with few exceptions related to the social representation with a fan or the participation in rituals. So, the social role of women is generally linked to the various activities related to procreation and motherhood. Even if figurines do not represent children, they are alluded in these important transitions of female lives that guarantee the continuity for the whole society. Childhood gets attention only in the Persian period in relation to rites linked to the transformation from male infant to child, especially by an upper middle segment of the population, considering the scarcity of terracotta figurines showing the so-called Tempus boy. In the Hellenistic period too, women and children interact in the community as well-dressed people and participate in rituals with dance, music, and offerings. Some of the main stages in the life cycle of women, boys, and girls were represented, in particular birth, puberty, and marriage. Women also at that time were concerned about motherhood issues with a particular focus on the health and welfare of children without a clear mention to the aspects of the pregnancy and birth. Moreover, since the society was different and perhaps more complex than before, women also declared their education and culture obtained at home or informal and informal schools. Furthermore, the significant presence of infants, children, and youngsters reveals the particular interest in the many aspects of childhood and adolescence, including the passages of age, important means to socialize and introduce the infant to the family and social community. They were already known from the Persian period, but widely increased during the Hellenistic age in terms of various works of art that reached much more places and social contexts. On the basis of the different age stages here summarized, little boys and girls share some attributes and gestures which place them in the world of play with birds and dogs. Then boys abandon childish objects and attitudes, going by the rules and becoming good citizens, also by exercising their bodies in gymnasia or unofficial open spaces. Girls are not included in these activities, but they have a role in birth offerings and in some phases of education, music, and dance. Around the age of 7, both boys and girls were involved in schooling, but females are represented reading only, while boys seem to go ahead in their education. To conclude, most of the examined figurines miniaturize an individual act of piety and are related to strength for women, especially with regard to life events such as pregnancy and breastfeeding. Moreover, as eudaimonic objects, they have also personalized a protective function, since the necessity for humans to protect themselves and their relatives, as well as to attract the benevolent power of different deities related to human fertility, childbirth, and the newborn's health, was certainly an important challenge also for the communities and in the culture of the ancient Phoenicia. And thank you for your attention.